So hello guys, I'm Aris and I would like to welcome you to my channel called History Me Up. This is, as the name suggests, a channel that is going to revolve around history subjects, primarily throughout the 20th century, as this is my main area of interest. To go on with the theme of the video, the day that this video is going to come out marks the 79th anniversary of the breakout of Operation Barbarossa, a German offensive against the Soviet Union. As many people have already covered the subjects like why did Barbarossa even start at the first place, or why the Germans failed to cripple the Soviet Union, I have decided to cover a new topic, something that I was thinking for a while, and I believe that would benefit the German war effort in 1941 much more rather than attacking a powerhouse like the Soviet Union. So I'm coming to you today with the topic of the video, that is why the Germans should have pursued a much more organized North African campaign rather than attacking the USSR. To start with, I would like to say that I'm going to split the video into two main two main sections. The first one will be why the Germans intervened in North Africa at first place, as this was a war that was started by the Italians against the British. And secondly, I'm not going to cover any of the main battles or the Rommel offensives in North Africa, neither Operation Torch in 1942, but I am going to discuss and I'm going to present to you the reasons why I think that the Germans should have invested much more troops, much more supplies, and ultimately should have completed a North African campaign of a campaign in the Eastern Front in 1941. In order to talk about the benefits that the Germans would have enjoyed had a more organized campaign in 1941 in North Africa happened, I feel that it is necessary to briefly discuss the reasons which forced a German involvement in North Africa in the first place. So I want to go back in time during a period that the North African theater hadn't seen major fighting, except some exceptions from some minor Italian offensives in late August and early to mid-September 1940, which have resulted in the Italians taking some fortified positions alongside the Libyan-Egyptian border. However, the Italians didn't really threaten the British positions in Egypt with these offensives. Stationed at that region was the Italian 10th Army under General Rodolfo Graziani, who had approximately 150,000 men to his name. As 1940 was coming to its end, the British High Command sought the victory to boost the British morale and show the Axis that the UK was still a force to be reckoned with. So the British High Command under Archibald Wavell, commander of the Middle Eastern Theatre, decided that they should launch a small offensive in North Africa. This offensive was codenamed Operation Compass. Was meant to be only a 5-day offensive to recapture all the positions that were lost to the Italians earlier that year, and to force, of course, the Italians out of Egypt. The British High Command provided General Richard O'Connor with 36,000 men from the 4th Indian Division, the 7th Armored Division, and the 4th Royal Tank Regiment. alongside the 6th Australian Division, which came later, replacing the 4th Indian Division, which went to the Eastern Africa Theatre. The British were outnumbered 5-1. So naturally, British generals weren't very hopeful about the offensive. For instance, in Wavell himself wasn't very hopeful about this offensive, as stated in a letter of his written on November 28th, 1940, to Sir Henry Maitland Wilson, saying that he wasn't very hopeful about this offensive, but he was ready to exploit at the most any success that the British could have. The British successes in the first 3 days alone were formidable, forcing all of the Italian troops out of Egypt whilst capturing 38,000 prisoners. From there, the British advance went on, capturing very, very important positions such as Tobruk. The British commander, Richard O'Connor, came up with an ingenious, in my opinion, plan. He sent the Australian Division, which by that time had already replaced the 4th Indian Division, by the road, by the seaside, whilst ordering the 7th Armored Division to cross the desert and cut off the Italian retreat. This was a plan that could horribly backfire, but fortunately for the British, it succeeded, and after the Battle of Beda Foams, the 7th Armored Division completely encircled the Italian 10th Army, cut off its retreat route, and subsequently forced them to surrender. The British take 138,000 Italian prisoners and secure the region of Cyrenaica. However, the British advance stops on February 9th, 1941, due to the dire need of the 7th Armored Division for repairs and refueling, and after a direct order coming from British Prime Minister Winston Churchill himself, stating that the biggest part of the North Africa army should be transferred, must be transferred to Greece to help their Greek allies defend against the upcoming German invasion, codenamed Operation Marita, which would take place in April 1941. Seeing that the Italians were on the verge of complete defeat in North Africa, which would have resulted in the collapse of the Mussolini regime in Italy, on January 22nd of 1941, Adolf Hitler publishes Directive number 22, saying that the Germans were to send some troops to North Africa in order to help its Italian allies. The first divisions of the Afrika Korps, as these troops were named, arrived in Tripoli in February 11th, 1941, under the command of one of the most accomplished German generals at the time, Erwin Rommel, with direct orders from Hitler to fortify their positions and secure that the Italians wouldn't be driven off Libya. Rommel was provided with only 2 divisions, the 5th Light and the 15th Panzer Division, but that didn't stop him from launching an offensive in just 2 months after his arrival, which surprised the British, which of course surprised the British, and was deemed a big success. But from that, a question raises: if Rommel saw so much success with so many limited resources. What if he had more troops, more supplies, and ultimately more support from the Führer in 1941? Could he have driven off the British out of Egypt? That is a question that, of course, nobody can answer, but this gives me the perfect opportunity to continue with the second section of this video and show you why the Germans should have opted for a North African campaign in 1941. First and foremost, a concentrated campaign in North Africa and a possible win would drive the British out of Egypt, which was a very important colony as it helped them establish their control in Eastern Mediterranean. Of course, losing a colony was also seen as a big blow for the British, as shown from the reaction of Winston Churchill and his cabinet after the loss of British Somaliland to the Italians. However, besides a colony, the Brits would also lose the vital Suez Canal. This canal ensured that British ships could go in and out of the Mediterranean relatively safely. Had Suez fallen in Nazi hands, then the British would be cut off the Mediterranean, and Hitler would have created the German equivalent of the Roman Mare Nostrum. Subsequently, the English navy in Mediterranean would be secluded and vulnerable to the Germans, and English forts like Malta and Cyprus would fall to the Germans. This would make excellent outposts for the German Kriegsmarine and the Luftwaffe, who would establish bases there and attack the Middle East. Furthermore, Egypt would secure the German easy passage to the Middle East and its precious oil springs. This helps me to make a very easy transition to my next point, which is that the Germans would secure the Middle East and regions rich in oil. Oil was, as it's known, oil was the Reich's biggest problem throughout the war, and it was one of the main reasons for the launch of Operation Barbarossa, as the Soviet Union was the largest oil producer in the world at that time. Now I know what some of you are going to say. Your argument is that Middle Eastern oil springs weren't as vastly discovered then as opposed to today. This, however, is not true, as the British have discovered and exploited oil springs in the Middle East from as back as late 1900s and early 1910s. After a win in North Africa, the Germans could march and secure countries rich in oil, like Iran, which was the fourth largest oil producer in the world, producing 8,765 tons per year. Iraq, which was a country where already a pro-German government has been established after the coup of 1st April 1941, orchestrated by Rashid Ali al-Gailani, and was the 9th largest oil producer in the world, producing 2,514 tons per year. Egypt itself was a very big oil producer, producing 929 tons per year, ranking 16th in the same list, and Saudi Arabia comes 19th in the list, producing 700 tons per year. If we add all of these numbers to the Romanian oil springs production, about 5,800 tons per year, and of course, Romanians were Germany's main oil provider at the time, we come up with 18,608 tons per year, almost two-thirds of what the USSR was producing in 1940. The exact number is 31,100 tons per year. This would be vital for the German war economy, as they would be better equipped for their attack against the Soviets, and of course they could postpone the attack for a year, as they weren't in such dire needs for oil. My third argument is that the Germans should seek war in North Africa, as the British troops were scattered all around the world. The majority of them was ready to defend their homeland in case of a German invasion, which wasn't likely at that point of time, but never off the table. Others were sent in Greece in order to prepare for the defense of their ally, whilst others were stationed in India and the Pacific Theatre. This only leaves a part of the British Army in North Africa which couldn't defend against a concentrated and organized German attack against them. Furthermore, a win in North Africa would be a huge momentum booster for the Germans. Since the start of the war, Germany has enjoyed consecutive successes after the annexation of Austria and the Anschluss, a win in Poland, a win in Norway, conquering France, and their upcoming success against the Balkans. A win in North Africa would have seen the already high German morale skyrocket as they were preparing for their attack against the USSR. Meanwhile, this defeat would be costly, very costly for the Brits. Not only they would lose the colony, not only they would lose their influence in the Middle East, not only they would lose the Suez Canal, but it would be just another failure after consecutive ones in Norway, in France, and the effects of the Blitz were still very much crippling the British morale. Finally, the Nazis, by winning in North Africa, would have surrounded, and after winning in North Africa and annexing Yugoslavia and Greece in the Balkans, would have surrounded Turkey, a country that they really, really wanted to join the Axis. Turkey would have no other choice than to join the Axis. This would have two very significant effects. One is on the German economy, as they would be able to purchase chromite, which was vital for their war effort, much cheaper, whilst Turkey could divert some Soviet troops, launching some minor offensives alongside the Soviet-Turkish border, helping out German supplies. So this is the end of the video, guys. I really hope you enjoyed it. I certainly did, as I found this to be a very, very interesting subject and something that I really wanted to share with you. If you enjoyed it, please like the video and hit that subscribe button for more. Please read the description before or as you're watching the video, as I'm going to mention some very important things. Comment down below your own thoughts about it, or what you want to see in the future, and see you next time. Bye bye.